Welcome back to my channel. I'm Ashley Bookwalter. As Brene Brown puts it, you either walk inside your story and own it, or you stand outside of your story and hustle for your worthiness. So I want to bring stories of women who are brave enough to be vulnerable. Today I bring to you the first video in a new series, the story of Makenzie, a young woman who has also struggled with loving herself. Through Makenzie's vulnerability, I hope that you will find peace, hope, and comfort in your own story.
So tell me just a little bit about where a lack of self-love has taken you in your life, what experiences it has led you to, and I guess kind of like what made you decide to start learning to love yourself and what steps you took.
I think the first thing that I can recall as like lack of self-love, I experienced it probably in high school. I was like completely unhappy with myself. So I had bouts of eating disorders. There was another instance too when I was in high school, my first boyfriend, first love. It was an extremely toxic relationship. He would spit on me. He would control everything that I wore. I couldn't have friends. I thought that was him loving me. That tone in that relationship set tones for the rest of my relationships. I had another relationship where he ended up choking me with a phone cord. But the biggest lack of self-love was when I became an addict. I was so empty inside. I was trying to fill those voids. I was empty. I ended up doing things in active addiction that I told myself that I would never do. I was at any means necessary getting the narcotics, and that was like with me selling myself because I had no self-worth whatsoever at all. I would be gone at months at a time. I wasn't seeing my son. The turning point in my life, and it took me going to jail. I remember one of my visits when I was in jail and my mother came in to see me. I was hurting so bad that I was lashing out. And my mom had brought my son up during the visit. And I remember taking the phone and just banging it on the window, telling her like Xavier would be better off with another mother. I didn't know how to work through this process. I didn't know how to start loving myself. I just knew that this was something that I needed to start doing. It took me being court ordered to treatment. I had lost everything. I was going through a divorce, could not see my son without supervised visits. I'll be honest, like the first 90 days was like a completely like discovery. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. I just had to start figuring things out. I work 12-step program. And that is actually what has helped me learn to love myself. I started working steps, and then I got to a point now today, like where if people will say something to me that I feel like is a projection, for that person to say that to me, like they're hurting too. Their perception of me is like a mirror image of themselves. I had to actually get to a point in my life today where I'm okay with where I'm at. So for the longest time, I stopped dating people. If I don't find it within myself and I can't love myself wholly, how can I expect somebody else to? If I don't even know who I am or what I want, how can I expect somebody else to? Today, even if I had to do this life by myself, I could do it by myself.
Was it hard when you first stopped dating?
Yes, but I knew it was important. I knew that anything worthy or worthwhile of value would come later on.
How long did you focus on you?
It took probably about 8 months.
How long prior to that had it been since you had been alone?
I can't tell you if that's ever really happened. From the age of 15 on.
And so you mentioned that when you went to treatment and it was then that you started to learn who you were, and up until then you didn't even know what you wanted to do when you like grew up. At what age was it that you actually went into treatment and started to learn who you were?
36.
So 36 years old. So prior to that, though, you had a husband, a family, you have a college degree, right? You had a career, and you were making decent money, right? I
Yeah.
mean, so from the outside looking in, you had the perfect life.
Yeah, I had everything that would be considered like the American dream, I guess. Um, I had a wonderful career. I had a beautiful child. We owned our home. We owned our cars. I was working as a financial analyst. There wasn't a thing that I needed or wanted.
And so once you went to treatment and you started working the 12 steps and you were by yourself for the first time, what finally sparked in you that you finally started to even just like yourself?
It was like a gradual process. I think it was just something that I built myself up with coping skills, and the self-love. So when I started working these steps, I started seeing like things that I had done, character defects, stuff like that. One of my major character defects is low self-esteem. Right. I had to hit that head on and face that. And for that low self-esteem, I had to turn it into a spiritual principle, which is like self-worth, self-love, something like that. So it's something I still continue to practice. I've spent a huge amount of time hating myself. I spent a huge amount of time saying terrible, negative things in my own head about myself. And I've spent a huge amount of time trying to overcome that.
I know you went from being in jail, having supervised visits with your son. What is that relationship with your son like today?
Oh, wow. So the relationship I have with my son today, I go and see him every other weekend.
Is it supervised or is it unsupervised?
Unsupervised.
Where are you at, like, career-wise? Did you go back to the career that you had prior to this?
I had contemplated and I've been back and forth about going back into the financial analyst business. So now I work at the treatment facility that helped save my life. So I get to help both men and women who suffer from the same disease, the disease of addiction. I get to help them stabilize and hopefully help them learn that there is life after drugs.
So when you had experienced the eating disorder and then you started using substances to kind of deal with the pain or fill that void, did you ever reach out?
I never reached out. I think what has held me back from that was my own self, my pride, my ego, in fear of being vulnerable, in fear of being judged, in fear of not being perfect, embarrassment. I was afraid people would judge me. So I didn't ask. Would there have been people that would have helped me? Yeah.
Do you feel that it is important for other women then to speak their truth?
It's extremely important. When we share and speak that truth, it takes the power away. If we share and we speak that truth, we could help somebody else. If we share, like, people don't have to suffer.
Makenzie, I think that your story is amazing and so powerful, and I honestly, like, truly appreciate you being so vulnerable and willing to share your story. I admire you, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Ash.